Ladies and gentlemen, it's a big, weird, wild world out there, folks, and here we stand. Al pie del cañón, ready for anything. I'm Rob, that's Dan, and you're listening to...
The ProBoh Show!
Good morning, everyone. It's 8:30 a.m. Central European Time, and you're joining me and Dan live on the ProBoh Show. How's it going out there, friends? How you doing in there, Dan? Thursday?
No one.
Yeah, one more day to the weekend. This week is dragging its heels. Dan, is it going well for you?
Yes.
Oh, it's so slow for me. I've all of a sudden accumulated a pile of work that is almost impossible to overcome. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Today's show, we continue. Oh, Dan, are you ready? We continue our topic of socialism. Thankfully, on Instagram, it was a little more balanced today, so you're not going to get too much of a speech from me at the beginning of the unpopular opinion. Today, we're talking about economic inequality and personal freedom. I think next week we're going to do some lighter topics, Dan. I think when I ask people to vote, I'm going to give them a potluck of several things and see what they choose. Let's see. Today's 100 Humans, we asked them to name something people don't like paying for through taxes. Name something that people don't like paying for through taxes. Nombra algo que la gente no le gusta pagar con sus impuestos. Not if you like paying taxes or not, because no one likes paying taxes. Oh. Yeah, see, this is the rationale around taxes. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, friends. Anyway, and today's unpopular opinion is economic inequality comes at the cost of personal freedom. Ooh, tough, heavy one today. La igualdad económica se consigue a costa de la libertad personal. It's an interesting one today. Dan, I can admit, I always know when I've got a difficult one, because then Dan gets a faraway, spacey look in his eyes, like, oh, take me to my happy place. Anyway, should we, what else is coming up? And then we've got some news and other fun and games and activities. But first, as we always do, we turn a weather eye to our amazing bohemians in the chat. How you doing, friends? Artemisa joining us this morning. Yeah, bear with me, guys. I left my glasses at home, so... reading is going to be an extra challenge today. Artemisa says, good morning, Rob, Dan the radio man, and all the charming, cheerful bohemians. Good morning to you, Artemisa. Bridge is here. She says, good morning, my bonny, bouncy bohemians. She's not making breakfast. She's been slipping on water until a couple of hours ago. Be careful out there, Bridge. We need you healthy for the shows. Come on. Mike says, good morning, dear bohemians. Another icon left us. Yeah, we'll get into that. Another icon has left us. It's like Dolly's gone and everyone's thinking, oh, what's the point? Do you know who died, Dan? Do you know who it was?
The Rocky House of... I don't know the name of it.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
I wanted you to finish that because that sounded like a better movie. Rocky House. Adrian! It's amazing. Sorry, Dan. R.I.P. Tim Curry, unforgettable as Pennywise, and also the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We will get into that. But are we at the risk of this show sounding like an obituary? I was talking to Fitz about this morning. Oh, dear me. But we did pay tribute to Dolly yesterday, so we will share some words about Tim Curry. Vero says, good morning, beautiful bohemians around the universe and beyond. Feeling a bit under the weather today. Oh, can we get a nivelazo? Under the weather.
Vaya nivelazo.
Do you know what that means, right, Dan?
To feel bad.
To feel bad, to feel ill.
But I don't think we should give a nivelazo for feeling bad.
No, for the... a nivelazo is supposed to be linguistic, right? And a ProBoh approved is for something we approve of. Hi, Dad. No, not that she feels bad. That she used such an obscure or hard to understand idiom. I take your point, Dan. You're not without merit in your argument. It's just funny. So yeah, Vero, just to clear that up, we're not awarding you for for feeling ill, but for your agile use of the English language. So good for you, Dan. Dan's the best. Let's see. After throwing up all afternoon, Vero, hopefully it wasn't anything you ate. Bridge says, left your glasses at home? Yeah, I did. I couldn't find them because I couldn't find my glasses. Vero also says R.I.P. Tim Curry. Eugene's here. Hi guys, how you doing, Eugene? The Bridge is here. My big day today. I shall be having a massive break later. Okay, good. Anyway, I ate too much, says Vero. Oh, that's the best kind of ill, isn't it? You're just stuffed because you've filled your face too much. Oh my gods. All right, well, I'll tell you what, friends. I'm here, you're here. Our angelic podcast listeners are here. Our amazing, sexy, delicious live audience is here. If you want to join them, it's very simple. Twitch.tv/professional bohemian. twitch.tv/bohemio profesional. Better in English. You can also interact with the show outside of our live times. You do that on my Instagram, @professionalbohemian. And of course, if you're extra specially cool, sexy, and charming, you join me on my Patreon. Patreon.com/professionalbohemian. There you can vote on all the polls we use and find the VODs. And soon you will have early access to something I've been working on, which has been robbing me of my evenings. But more on that when I've done more. Should I give him a clue? I'm 2 episodes into a new podcast that is particularly designed for people who are fans of the unpopular opinions. I'm going to start working on the 3rd, probably this afternoon. Anyway, let's get into that. Okay, so let's get into some news, shall we? All right. Let's start with Tim Curry, given we've mentioned him already. Again, died at 80, just like Dolly. Actor Tim Curry, dead at 80. Muere el actor Tim Curry a los 80 años. Do you know anything else other than Rocky House, that he was in? No. He was in quite a lot of stuff. Pennywise, he famously played Pennywise in the original TV adaptation of Stephen King's It. My personal favourite role of his was in the movie Clue, based on the board game Cluedo. I think it's called Clue in the States. We call it Cluedo here in Spain. Cluedo in the UK. I'm not sure why that difference is. But he played the butler in Clue. A great movie if you've never seen it. Really funny. Tim Curry, the legendary actor, best known for playing Dr. Frank N. Furter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, has died at age 80. The outlet reports, it was TMZ that I got this from, that Curry passed away late Tuesday night at his Los Angeles home after struggling with serious health issues for more than a decade. Yeah, I believe he had a massive stroke in around 2012. Law enforcement sources told TMZ that the police responded to his home at 11:23 p.m. with no foul play suspected, and the Los Angeles Fire Department had earlier been called to a medical emergency. Curry's career stretched across more than 5 decades, from his cult-defining role in the Rocky Horror Picture Show to memorable performances as Pennywise in the 1990 adaptation of Stephen King's It, Mr. Hector in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. His other credits include Clue, Annie, The Hunt for Red October, Muppet Treasure Island, and Scary Movie 2. A respected stage and screen performer, Curry earned 3 Tony nominations and an Emmy nomination during his career, though his work slowed after a major stroke in 2012. So, let's remember the work and life of the great actor Tim Curry. I liked him a lot in The Three Musketeers as Richelieu, says Vero. Yeah, he had such a broad career. Good for him. I mean, geez. Can we just hold the death for a little while, celebrities? Can you just hold on? Let's get to some news. As you know, we've been following the Meta lawsuit. Dan, can I just say, by the way, I am owed some AI news, because I've been a really good boy recently. So let's get to some Meta news. We've been following the lawsuit, the Meta lawsuit, all right? And I'm not sure if it's concluded yet. I think it has concluded. But some interesting stuff to pick through with regards to that conclusion. Meta agrees to change Facebook and Instagram as it settles a US trial over teen addiction for up to $18 billion. It's coming from The Guardian. So yeah, it has finished. They settled out of court. Meta acepta cambios importantes en Facebook y Instagram al resolver el juicio en los Estados Unidos por adicción adolescente por hasta $18 millones. 18 mil millones de dólares. 18 billion in US terms. Meta has agreed to make major changes to Facebook and Instagram after settling a landmark lawsuit over allegations that its platforms harmed and addicted young users. The settlement, which could cost the company up to $18 billion over 10 years, will require new safeguards for teenage users in the US. Just in the US. Including daily usage limits, restrictions on nighttime use, limits on notifications during school hours, and bans on plastic surgery filters. Meta denies wrongdoing. I'm going to read that again. Meta denies wrongdoing. So why are you paying $18 billion and changing your platform? We didn't do anything wrong, but I'll tell you what. Let's pay $18 billion and change our platforms. Yeah. Meta denies wrongdoing, but this is the first time in the US that the company has been forced to alter key features of the everyday user experience. The case was brought by California and 28 other states. I think we previously covered that in other shows, which accused Meta of deliberately designing addictive products linked to anxiety, depression, and suicide among young people, as well as collecting data from children under 13 without parental permission. Meta says the settlement will only succeed if other platforms such as TikTok, Snap, and YouTube adopt similar protections. Judge, it's not just us, it's those guys too. Will you... Come on, Mark. Mr. Zuck. Jeezy Louise. The deal ends a trial that had already heard testimony from former Meta safety engineer Arturo Bejar, who alleged the company had a don't ask, don't tell approach to child safety. So just to sum all that up, it seems like, apparently, according to Arturo Bejar, when we covered that whistleblowing that happened in the trial. They knew they were doing harm to children, according to Bejar, but did nothing about it. They describe it here in this as a don't ask, don't tell policy with regards to kids on the platform. Meta says, we did nothing wrong, but we will pay $18 billion over 10 years and change our platforms. Even because we did nothing wrong, we'll do all that. Oh, I mean, when will these rules kind of extend to adults as well? Because I know adults do struggle. How are you doing, Dan, with your controlling of your use of platforms?
I'm leaving Twitter. But because it's crap, the things that it shows.
I want a Nivelato. Oh, no, not Nivelato. ProBoh approved. I want a ProBoh approved.
ProBoh approved.
Congratulations. Oh, man. Dan, I feel a swelling of pride, dude.
No, but it's not because addiction. It's because it's crap, the content.
It is crap, the content. It's hate-filled nonsense that just fills yourself up with more hate. And how are you doing with your Instagram reel thing?
No, I'm the same.
You're the same. But the first step is acknowledging that you use it too much. And that's a very important step. And I'm really, really mega proud of you leaving. There is actually some Twitter news that I wanted to cover today, but we just don't have time. Remind me tomorrow and we'll talk about something interesting. Because of course it's not Twitter, is it? It's X now. So I want to talk to you about a platform, and I can't remember the name on the surface, that is causing a headache for Elon Musk. But we'll do that tomorrow, friends, because right now we have to go to an unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion.
I echo what Artemisa says here. Whoa, congrats for you, Dan. I applaud your decision. Me too. Can we get more love for Dan? And I wish when I was 22 years old, Dan, I had your common sense. I had just given up drinking when I was 21, 22. I'd just given up drinking, just gotten a hold on that habit. But because of that, I fell into a lot of other habits. My mood was terrible. I was kind of, wow, Dan. Do we have the round of applause sound effect? I want a round of applause, Dan. That's Artemisa. Artemisa did that for you. Mike, just very quickly wrapping up the news section. He says, in Home Alone 2, he worked in the Plaza Hotel for Donald Trump. That must have been a pain in the neck. This kid, I don't like him. We're going to build a wall around his room. It seems 80s is the cutoff. 80 is the cutoff point, says the bridge. Wow, if I survive to 80, man, that will be an achievement. All right, let's get into today's unpopular opinion. We're talking about personal freedom and economic equality. Does one come at the cost of another? So today's unpopular opinion is economic equality, igualdad económica, comes at the cost of personal freedom. Se consigue a costa de libertad personal. And there's a lot to talk about here, right? It's a difficult concept to fit around your head. But I think the most pertinent point here is that economic inequality, the point I'd like to make before we get into this debate, is that economic inequality costs freedom too, doesn't it? Economic inequality carries freedom costs as well, especially for people who lack resources and leave them with few meaningful options. You can't afford to go to university. You can't afford to leave your job. If you're in the States, you can't afford healthcare. You can't afford to pay your bills. You can't afford. Are we gonna lie to ourselves and say economic inequality doesn't carry a cost of freedom as well? The real choice isn't equality or freedom. It is which freedoms are you willing to sacrifice and for whom? So there's the unpopular opinion. Economic inequality comes at the cost of personal freedom. La igualdad económica se consigue a costa de la libertad personal. How do you think they voted on Instagram, Dan?
I think they voted true.
They actually voted false, just by a narrow margin. When I saw this morning, it was 50-50 and it's shifted through the morning. It's at 54% false right now. Where do you stand on this one?
I think it's false, but I don't have a strong argument.
Yeah, you don't have a strong opinion. Yeah, I think that I'm kind of with you on this one today, Dan. I don't really kind of... By the way, all these topics were picked by you, the audience. I do put a list of topics on my Patreon and ask the members. By the way, you can also vote if you're a free member of my Patreon. You'll find a link to that post going up there tomorrow for you to vote on next week's topics. The reason is because I think it's a false choice. I think economic equality could cost personal freedoms, but I think economic inequality, what we see today, also affects people's freedoms. So I think it's a bit of a false choice. I think it paints economic equality as costing freedom while ignoring that economic inequality is costing freedom as well. So yeah, it's a tough one today. Should we get into some pros and cons? The false argument narrowly won. 54% voted false. That is likely to change. But if I manage to engage my brain properly, I'll remember it was 54% on Instagram. Economic insecurity is itself a loss of freedom. That's the point I was making there right at the beginning. Someone who cannot afford housing, healthcare, transport, or education may possess many rights in theory while having few realistic choices. Greater equality can expand freedom by giving more people the material ability to act on those rights. Yeah, it's one thing having the right to own property. It's another thing being able to afford that property. This is funny because I just completed a podcast about freedom yesterday, and I covered a lot of these issues. I mean, to offer some kind of a rebuttal today, expanding one's personal or a person's practical freedom through redistribution of wealth still requires taking resources from someone else, doesn't it? Taking from Elon Musk and giving to someone else. It's hard to argue that you're not infringing or impinging, the freedoms of richer people. The conflict remains even if the trade-off is considered worthwhile. Inequality can produce private domination. Extreme wealth differences give some people far greater power to influence employment, housing, politics, and markets. Again, we did bring up Elon Musk, and he's a great example. How he has been funding extreme far-right candidates all over Europe and in the US. Reducing inequality can make ordinary people less dependent on wealthy individuals and institutions, increasing their autonomy. Again, I'm going to try and be balanced today because it was a balanced vote on Instagram. So I think the differences in wealth do not automatically amount to domination, do they? Voluntary relationships can remain mutually beneficial when parties are economically unequal. What I mean by that is, the relationship between rich and poor can still be mutually beneficial, an employer-employee relationship, even though they are economically unequal, both equal cogs in the machine. Universal services can increase choice. Public healthcare, education, childcare, and social insurance can make people less dependent on employers, spouses, or family wealth. A person who decides or who does not fear losing healthcare or becoming destitute may feel freer to quit a bad job, retrain, or leave an unhealthy relationship. It's true. Economic liquidity increases someone's freedom. Does that necessarily mean that it decreases the freedom of others, though? Just because it increases someone else's freedom? I would argue it does. It shifts the average in one direction. And if you're extremely poor, and if, for example, if you're in the States and you can't afford healthcare, or you can't afford a great education or childcare, or transport. Certain transport is inaccessible to you. Can't afford a car. You have to take public transport, which limits the reach of which you can you can take a job. All those things lead to a life that is markedly less free, doesn't it? A rebuttal, I think, would be that those services still require compulsory taxation, They may expand freedom for recipients of that taxation while reducing the economic freedom of those who pay for them. But everybody does pay those taxes, let's be fair. Let's pay some attention to the pro column. Equalizing outcomes requires restricting choices. If people are free to earn different amounts, work different hours, and take different risks, save differently and invest as they choose, unequal outcomes will naturally emerge. Reducing those differences requires a society to interfere with at least some of those choices. I would argue that equality does not have to mean identical outcomes, does it? I think that's another false argument that we quite hear pushed. A society can reduce extreme inequality while leaving people enormous freedom over work and consumption and investment. It's not every social policy is communism, is it? But that's the scare tactic, isn't it? Oh, it's socialism. Don't worry, Dan, I did it with my mouth. That's communism. It's just trying to scare people. The more aggressively a society redistributes wealth, the less complete an individual's control becomes over what they earn. Taxation may be justified, but it still involves society deciding what part of one person's resources should be used for someone else. Let's not kid ourselves. Earnings are made possible by public institutions. We've spoken about this before. Infrastructure, law, education, social stability. Contributing to those systems isn't it doesn't amount to unaccessible loss of freedom. It gives greater freedom, and I would argue helps create more growth. Let's do one more. Inheritance makes the trade-off unavoidable. Parents generally want the freedom to give their children what they have accumulated, but doing so creates unequal starting points. Greater economic equality, therefore, requires limiting one generation's freedom to benefit from the next. Yeah, I think that's just one example, and I know a lot of people here in Spain hate the idea of inheritance tax. Unlimited inheritance can convert freedom into a hereditary privilege. That's just a fact. Some restrictions may actually increase the freedom of people born without wealthy parents, though. All right, friends, those are your pros and cons. The unpopular opinion is economic equality comes at the cost of personal freedom. True or false? La igualdad económica se consigue a costa de la libertad personal. True or false? I'm going to ask you to vote. I know it's a tough one today. Do write me some comments in the chat as well for when we get back from the break. Guys, I'll see you in a few short minutes. Hey guys, if you'd like to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. That's patreon.com/professional bohemian. There you'll find VODs of the episodes as they are recorded live, blogs, vlogs, and behind-the-scenes content. If you'd like to watch the show live, you can do so on twitch.tv/professional bohemian, and you can participate in the polls we use in the show on Instagram @professional bohemian or Twitter @ProBoh, ProBoh. Okay, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second part of today's ProBoh Show. It's currently 9 a.m. Central European Time, and you're joining me, very proud me, and very decisive Dan. That's your new name. It's not Dan the Radio Man. It's Decisive Dan, the Radio Man. Why? Well, you find out in a second. So what do we cover? If you just tuned in, what did you miss? We looked at the sad passing of the actor Tim Curry. He most famous, I think, for Dr. Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you're looking for a personal recommendation of a movie of his you'd like to watch, given that, it's a bit of a tribute, I would say the movie Clue. It's a great movie based on the board game Clue in the US, Cluedo in the UK, Cluedo here in Spain. Got some very famous, it's a star-studded cast of all the most famous people, comedians from the 80s. And it's a really great movie. I think Christopher Lloyd is in it. I think actually Christopher Lloyd plays Professor Plum in that movie. It's just a really great film. I do recommend that one, but spare a bit of time. Think about Christopher Lloyd today, as we did yesterday with Dolly Parton. And then we looked at the conclusion of the Meta lawsuit, the one we've been covering on the show, a case that was brought by California and 28 other states, which accused Meta of deliberately designing addictive products linked to anxiety, depression, and suicide amongst young people. Of course, Meta deny wrongdoing. And that denial of wrongdoing takes the shape of them paying $18 billion and changing their platform. So you can think for yourself there whether that is whether they are actually free from wrongdoing. That's a decision you can make for yourself. Of course, there were some amazing and very worrying statements made by Arturo Bejar, I imagine that is, about the situation there. The don't ask, don't tell approach to child safety that they had. Hopefully that's going to come to an end. Of course, one of Meta's first actions was pointing their finger out at the other platforms. Them too. TikTok, Snap, YouTube. Make them change too. I mean, I agree. Make them change too, but, clean your own side of the yard up first, right, Meta? And then we moved into today's unpopular opinion. Bridge here says, Rob, you just killed Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd isn't dead. I never said he was dead, did I? I don't think I said he was dead. I don't think he is dead. But he's in that movie Clue, and it's an amazing movie. I do recommend it. Anyway, I did piss everyone off, Dan. Pissed everyone off. Not with the unpopular opinion, which is economic equality comes at the cost of personal freedom. igualdad. How do you pronounce that word? Give me it.
Igualdad.
Igualdad. Did I not say it like that? I think I did. I don't know. Igualdad. But yeah, both Bridge and Vero give me a little pronunciation cue here. Igualdad. Igualdad. And thank you. I appreciate it. Can we get a Nivelato for those guys? Let's see. The PC is acting up a little bit in there. No.
Vaya nivelazo.
We got there. We might have to do a restart through Fitz's show, Dan. All right. So let's get into it, shall we? It is a tough one today. I'm kind of on the fence as well because the argument itself denies or seems to forget that economic inequality affects freedom as well, and I don't kind of like that. The debate is really about which kind of freedom matters most, right? One idea of freedom is freedom from interference, particularly government interference, right? You should be able to keep what you earn or give it away, invest it, take risks, and make agreements without others continuously overriding your choices, that government overreach. From that perspective, economic equality undeniably has a price because creating it requires restricting some of those freedoms to give your money away as you wish, to keep everything you earn, to take risks with it. But the opposing idea, and I think where I'm leaning mostly today towards the false, is that freedom is a freedom as a real capacity. A person with no savings or poor healthcare, weak education, no ability to refuse a terrible job if they want to, may be legally free. They have inalienable rights, but they're practically concerned. That's what I mean by a real capacity, the real capacity for freedom, not just some rights you may have. The real access to freedom is restricted by money, isn't it? Redistribution can reduce the property freedom of one person while greatly expanding the life choices of another. When I say property, I don't mean just houses. I mean, all kinds of property. There's also a conflict between equal treatment and equal power, I think. Treating everyone according to identical rules can allow enormous economic inequalities to develop. Like trying to prevent those inequalities requires treating people differently through progressive taxation, transfers, and other interventions. But of course, a lot of people don't like that. Don't like that idea. And yeah, I mean, look, how would I feel? Like, because I'm coming at this from a very particular perspective, and I suppose Dan too, and I suppose you too. We are not uber wealthy, right? If we were, would we still think false on this one? So it's a tough one today. You've still got time to vote, I believe. Yeah, you do. Not very long though. In fact, I'm lying. The poll has just finished right now. All right, so it's over. So I think it's easy for us to comment through the eyes of our own through the lens of our own economic situation, isn't it? But let's face it, I mean, don't we live in a democracy? So shouldn't majority rule? And I think the vast majority of us aren't as economically mobile as we'd like to be. So that should say something, shouldn't it? All right, let's take a look at some of the comments you guys left. Sorry, I'm starting to monologue again. Vero says false. Economic inequality does not inherently come at the cost of personal freedom, though some thinkers argue it can. Whether equality reduces freedom, it depends entirely on which freedoms and which equalities we're talking about. Like economic inequality is just the freedom of how and what to do with your cash, with your liquid money, or even your investments, right? Your assets. Economic equality would say that, well, we should limit the amount that can be inherited, or at least it should come at a cost to be redistributed. Taxation. I mean, no, but here's the thing, like, who enjoys paying taxes? No one. The only thing, I think the difference is between us and the Scandinavian countries, right, that have extremely high taxes. They don't hate it because they recognize they have enough collectivism left in their society that they recognize a rising tide raises all ships. But many of us don't. We think, well, I'm doing well and that's good for me and it sucks to be everyone else. You're not working hard enough. Right? And that's just false. And then we talk about privilege. We can say, okay, well, these people have started off higher in the ladder because they inherited a large sum of money. And we talk about privilege. And it's heard as an accusation. Like everything, someone who has started off with privilege have their wins are not real, but that's not the case. Like I started off my life poor. You know, I lived with my grandparents. My education was bad, and I was very, very lucky to escape that. But, and here's the important but, I was a benefit of privilege. Number one, I was born in the body of a white man. Oh my God. Can't say that out loud, but it's true, and it's a privilege. Or at least it was a big privilege, I think you can agree, 47 years ago. You know, I had the privilege of a system that allowed me to get into university through the back door, but I got in. That's a privilege. A privilege can be all sorts of things. It can be a quiet room to study in. You know, it can be parents who when talking about money, talk about it calmly instead of anxiously. And not every risk. Like we talk about advantage, right? We talk about risk and risk taking. And we see two people starting a business. And on paper, it looks like they're accepting the same risk, but they aren't. Maybe one of those people knows that if the business fails, they move into the spare room. No big deal. Another person knows if the business fails, then, you know, they can't pay their mortgage and 3 people are destitute. On paper, it looks like the same risk. But in reality, on a spreadsheet, it looks the same. But in reality, one has a safety net and the other doesn't. So that's why I use myself as an example of privilege, because I feel like even though most people who started off in my position wouldn't argue that they started off with privilege, but I can see, because I'm a rational person, that I did. Anyway, economic inequality. Let's get back to it. Artemisa says, I lean towards the false side on this one. Equality should mean genuinely similar opportunities and freedoms of choice. How much someone earns can reflect their abilities, choices and achievements. The aim should be a fair starting point, not identical finish line. Yeah, I agree with that. But I might take issue. What did you say here? How much someone earns can reflect their abilities, choices and achievements. Can also reflect the fact that their parents had enough money to send them to a good school, right? Could afford to help them out economically through education. That they had the chance to retrain. So I'm talking about the idea of privilege and why we misrepresent what privilege is, because we tend to hear it as an accusation. And I think we'd all be better off not being so sensitive about it, you know? Anyway, thank you for that, guys. Some really great and thoughtful comments, and I really appreciate that. Artemisa and Vero. Let's get into some comments I received on Instagram. So I have to do a little scrolling here. Anders says, I agree, making outcomes more equal usually means placing more limits on what people can keep, inherit, or do with their money. Anders, I agree. But the opposite is also true. Economic inequality as it stands today also limits people's practical freedom. Can you agree with that? I mean, it's one thing having the right to own property. But it's another thing being able to afford property, isn't it? It limits your actual freedom. But that wouldn't be a fair starting point, said Artemis. Yeah, true story. Georgia Hayes says, not necessarily. Someone who can't afford healthcare, education or housing isn't particularly free just because the government leaves them alone. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards a false today. I was pretty much in the middle when we were starting off. Nicola says, it depends on what kind of equality you mean. Equal opportunities and equal outcomes require very different levels of intervention. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Celeste says, sometimes giving up a little economic freedom can give millions of people more practical freedom in their everyday lives. Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with Celeste there. What do you think, Dan? Have we shifted your needle in one direction?
I'm still in the middle, to be sincere.
Still in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's... Yeah, I mean, I think the middle ground is probably the most rational. You don't really lean towards true or false today, right? Kind of bang in the middle. Because he said at the beginning you were leaning a little towards false, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've moved over more towards the true side. You're in the middle now.
Yes, I'm in the middle.
Interesting. It is a tough one. It's a tough debate today. I mean, because, I think practically speaking, we all agree with the idea of taxation. And again, until we have to pay those taxes. I think people who started off lower down the ladder all agree with an inheritance tax until they're starting to inherit something. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on a minute. I didn't realize this would affect me. So yeah, I get it. Which makes these conversations kind of difficult to have, but also very practical, without the fear-mongering that goes on in the modern media, right? So should we get to the results of the poll? Economic inequality comes at the cost of personal freedom. La igualdad económica se consigue a costa de la libertad personal. You guys said 75% false. I'm going to go back to what I said really at the beginning of the show. Economic equality, it does carry a cost in personal freedom, if that freedom means complete control of your property and economic choices. If that's what freedom means to you, then it does. I mean, pragmatically and practically speaking, it does. But economic inequality carries freedom costs too, especially for people who lack resources. It leaves them with no meaningful options, very few practical freedoms. The real choice isn't equality or freedom, it's which freedoms you're willing to sacrifice and for whom, and whether you believe that a rising tide indeed raises all ships. And we've seen in this series of shows that quite often it doesn't. Quite often when the tide rises, it only lifts a few boats. So it's a tough one. But you know all those things, guys. You know what Grandpa Bo would have called them? He'd have called them opinions. And opinions, they're like buttholes. Everyone has one. They all stink, including mine. Let's move on to today's 100 Humans. I've got to admit, I'm finding these topics on Dan, are you ready? Let's see if the computer will work. On socialism. Very useful to sharpen and change my own views on a lot of things. Just goes to show that quite often the modern media landscape doesn't give us enough breathing room to hear enough variety of opinions to really make informed decisions ourselves. So I love you guys, and I really do appreciate all the work you put into these. All right, it was a long walk to work today across snow-capped mountains and through river valleys, and on that walk, Artemisa loves the sound effect. It was a long walk to work today across snow-capped mountains and through river valleys, and on that walk, I encountered 100 humans and asked them all a question. Today's question was, name something that people don't like paying for through taxes. Name something people don't like paying for through taxes. I asked them that question. They gave me their answers. I'm in possession of the top 7 answers right here. Your job in the audience is to identify those top 7 answers. I love that sound effect for socialism. Yeah, you know, that was a spur of the moment decision we made on Tuesday morning. Just to add a little humour, because it's kind of, when you talk politics, it can be so dry and boring. So we need to give it a little bit of chicha, don't we? All right, Dan, name something people don't like paying for through taxes.
Some people don't like paying for monarchy.
Monarch. Oh, great. Goddamn answer, Dan. Yeah, very prescient for Spain and for the UK. Is monarchy there? No, it's not. Something that people don't like paying for through taxes. So that's monarchy's a great answer, but it's not there. An amazing answer, Dan. I wish it was there, because when you're talking to people in the UK, that is a hot button topic. Is it as prescient here in Spain as it is in the UK?
I think it's in the middle.
In the middle.
Some people don't care.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, we're not going to get into a royalism argument, but yeah, interesting. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, because some people are strongly in favour of it, and some people not. All right, let's see what people are saying. Eugene says military spending. So military, something that people don't like paying for. Algo que la gente no le gusta pagar con sus impuestos. Is military there? Military, ejército, you say in Spain. Yes, it is. Well done, Eugene. Getting us off the board there. 14 of 100 humans said military. Thunder is the best mental image for socialism. Yeah, but we've been arguing quite a lot of you have been arguing in favour of some quite socialist ideals, which is fun, because I've kind of tried to take the socialism out of the argument so we can argue about them as concepts, not as socialist ideals. And we obviously take the power away from that word by making fun of it a little with thunder. Politicians, they didn't vote for. Politicians, says Artemisa. Politicians. Políticos. Is politicians there? Políticos. Yes, it is. Well done. Woohoo! And with 21 of 100 humans, it's the number one answer. Yeah, like lifetime payments, right? Things like that. Let's stop where we are. By the way, big thanks to Pedro, Fenokiti, Emily, Juan Arreo, Ana Casan, MP Contel, Ivan GP, Ivan Samroff, many others. Thank you all for interacting on Instagram. Pedro also agrees with that on Instagram. He says politicians' privileges. Juan Arreo says politicians. Political expenditure says Ivan Samroff. Yeah, a lot of people said politicians, their privileges, their wages. Okay. Politicians didn't vote for. Vero says welfare programs. Ayudas sociales. Welfare. Is welfare there? Yes, it is. Welfare is there, and it's the number 2 answer with 16 of 100 humans. Again, you don't like paying for it until you're receiving it, and then you're like, oh, this is useful. And vote for number 1, says Artemisa. Political campaigning, I think that falls under politicians, doesn't it, Mike? TV propaganda, says Eugene. Well, Eugene, you're coming at this from a very particular Russian point of view, right? So I'm going to expand this so it's easier for maybe us in Europe to participate. Public broadcasting. Is that fair, Dan? He's just saying yes because he... It's public broadcasting there. So, Radio Televisión Pública. Yes, it is. Well done. Again, another big one in the UK because of the BBC license fee. I would argue, of all the things in British taxes, I think that's a particularly good one. Yeah, TV license says the Bridge. What's this? Bridge says the state lottery. Artemisa has a good one here, actually. She says roadworks that never end. Yeah, you'd call that infrastructure. Is infrastructure there? No, it's not. Wah, wah, wah. By the way, it's not Dan, it's the computer. You know what? I'm going to get political expenditure. Political expenditure, it says Ivan Samrov, right? And council taxes, says MP Contel. I think that's different from politicians. I think that's more of a bureaucratic issue. Bureaucratica. Is bureaucracy there? Yes, it is. Well done. TV licenses the bridge. Madrid parking policy. Says Artemisa. Are you sure there is no propaganda in your... Well, there is. Obviously there is. Yeah, but we've stopped calling it propaganda now. We've started calling it media bias. If we started calling it propaganda again, I wonder if it would continue as prevalently as it is. How are you doing, Mr. Fitzgerald, by the way?
Good morning.
We're talking about something people don't like paying for through taxes, but unfortunately we have to go through the list. Guys, you just missed a few. Some other answers here I'll highlight. Artemisa said prisons. Anything they don't realise what taxes are paying for, says Emma Lee. Anna Kassan said, I guess people don't like paying taxes at all, which is a fair point, I imagine. All right, let's go through the list. I asked 100 humans to name something. Nombra algo que la gente no le gusta pagar con sus impuestos. Something people don't like paying for through taxes. In position number 7, we had public broadcasting. Radio Televisión Pública. In position number 6, bureaucracy. Burocracia, I think you say it in Spanish. In position number 5, immigration, you missed. Inmigración, hot button topic nowadays. In position number 4, we had military, el ejército. In position number 3, foreign aid, ayuda exterior, is something that the 100 humans mentioned. In position number 2, you did get this one, it was welfare, ayudas sociales. And finally, in position number 1, politicians. All right, Fitz, you've got the ladies in this morning.
Yes, sir. Well, some of them.
Some of them.
Some of them are on holidays and more of them are not on holidays and some of them are here.
I'm looking forward to the end of summer. I've got to be honest. And guys, if you're looking for something to spend your time on after the summer, I would highly recommend one of our master's programs. You can find out about that on grupovaughan.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow.